Today I'll be changing the valvetronic motor in there on my n46b20a on an e46 CI 2004 BMW. First thing I want to do is I want to give myself a bit of space, so I'll remove all the air filter, the cross brace for the two towers, remove the air filter, the cabin air filter. As you can see, it could do with a bit of with the new replacement. It's getting a bit dirty now. You want to grab yourself a T27 Torx head key. Four bolts holding the air filter box up. So just remove them. Just unclip the wire and loop off the front of it. That should just slide out like that. Again, I will be cleaning all this before I put it back together. There's an awful lot of dust from it just sitting in the yard. In my particular car, I have lost these two plastic clips, so I replaced them with 6mm gutter bolts and nuts. These are the little bolts I used. In our trade we call them gutter bolts. All they are is just a little M6 bolt with a big pan head on them and a square nut in behind. They fit like a glove in there. They're a good replacement if you do ever lose them clips or break them. Now I want a 10mm socket to remove the air filter, and I will want the same flathead to undo the Jubilee clip. Start with the two 10mm bolts. They're a long enough wee bolt. They're M6 as well, just your standard M6 thread. Now undoing the Jubilee clip. Last time I walked on my car, I actually inverted the Jubilee clip so the bolt for it faces up the way, so it's easy enough to get to. Don't go ripping it out, because you do have your mass airflow sensor plugged into it. Take a bit of care with it when taking it out. You might just end up ripping a very important sensor. Next thing, since I have the cross brace, I need to actually undo the coilovers as well with the camber plates on it. Remove that so I can take the covers off then. For this last bolt I'll need a spanner. I do like them offset ring spanners. So much nicer to use, I reckon. Little tray is handy to keep all your bolts, that way you cannot lose them. Now, next thing I'll want to remove the positive terminals up there because they're very tight in with the cross brace. So I need to pop them terminals up, and only then I can lift out the cross brace then after. Make sure not to lose this little plastic clip, because it clips through the metal. It goes through one side, the actual terminals, and then the back end of it slides over from the top, locking the whole piece in together, so be very careful not to lose that one. I was using this big flathead just to gently pry up the aluminium cross brace bar. Don't want to damage that, it's very easily done. For the sake of the coilovers staying there in place where they're meant to be, I'm just going to stick a nut on either side back on and tighten them. That way the coilovers will not move when you're yanking stuff around the place in the engine bay. Next thing is I'll grab myself the 10mm again, and there's two bolts on top of the wee engine cover over the intake manifold. I want to remove that little cover. Mine's missing one bolt, so I'm just going to undo only the one. My cover is all cut up because there's extra injectors in the manifold drilled in for LPG gas. Has a tank in the boot. Next thing I'll be removing the cover on the side on top of the valve cover. For that you first need to remove the oil cap, and then it just lifts off on little clips. When lifting the cover off, make sure to put your finger in there at the very back so as to not clip any cables. Very easy to rip them off as well if you just try and yank it out. Now, my problem with the valvetronic motor is the motor itself is good, but the wee clip you see does not retain anymore. So as you're driving down the road, what happens is it just pops off and then throws your check engine light, and then reverts back to using the throttle body rather than valvetronic to adjust the revs. And so it's kind of down on power in the high end because it can't turn the valve. So whatever the valves were last opening at, it's just going to open at that. So they could be opening just 3mm instead of 8 or whatever within the range. Could be at anything, they won't be opening fully, so you might end up losing a lot of power. So that's my problem anyway. It's quite a common one. This just ages the plastic and it just cracks up and falls out, and then it can't retain the control wiring on it. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to actually lift the whole valve cover off. And on these N46 motors, there's a problem with them, or a common thing, where the valve cover or gasket starts leaking. So I got myself a new gasket set that includes the valve cover gasket, the eccentric camshaft position gasket and a few O-rings as well for all the individual spark plug holes as well. So I'll be replacing that whole thing as well while I'm in there. I may as well do no harm replacing that, just save you having to rip the whole thing apart again a few miles down the road. For the valve cover again, you want a 10 mil socket. Now again, for the last bolt there, you want a wee spanner rather than a ratchet. This one here, because you do have your wire and loom here for all the spark plugs, and you do have very little space on top, so I much prefer using one of them offset ring spanners for that. Also, as I was opening all the bolts, I realized I actually need to do the eccentric valves or eccentric shaft sensor and all the coil packs first, and try and remove the whole wire and loom off the top of the engine before I can lift the valve cover. So I'll be doing that next once you crack this last bolt open. These bolts in the back, they'll be awkward enough to access. Do need fairly skinny fingers for that. There's one here, one here, one here, and then these ones go, the closer you go towards the front, the handier they'll get. So there's one here, then one here in the corner, one in this corner, one in the middle at the front, one that corner, one here, one here, one here, and then your most awkward one as well there. Before lifting the cover as well, make sure you disconnect this valve going to the PCV or the CCV system as they call it, as the BMW calls it. You do need to remove that, and while you're going that deep, I'd recommend replacing these pipes as well, because they do like to crack with the heat, and then you start losing vacuum and your engine starts running funny as well. So I'll be replacing the whole CCV system as well, or the pipe work to it anyway. So this pipe runs from the top of the valve cover up, and then your whole CCV itself, the membrane, sits here under the manifold. So it is a big enough job to try and get to it. You have to lift the whole intake manifold off, which means the fuel rail, in my case the gas injectors, you have to undo the throttle body. You have to try and get access to bolts underneath as well, because the plenum is screwed in from under it as well. So you'll have to try and lift the car up to get to them bolts, and you'll want a big long Torx head as well for that. So that's that so far. Let's start with these coil packs. Coil pack removal is relatively simple. All you want is just a big gauge of a flathead screwdriver. Don't rest the screwdriver on the valve cover itself. Rest it on your hand as you're pushing it down, because it will crack the plastic lip on top of it. That's the 4 coil packs of the spark plug. So the next thing I want to do is I want to unplug the loom and undo the eccentric valve sensor connector. That's number 1. So we'll be laying them down as I take them out in the same order, so we put them back in the same order. There's your number 2. Number 3. As you can see, some of those are actually still original 20-year-old coil packs. You can see on the sides there it's made of plastic rather than metal. So the new ones, the replacement ones, they're made of metal, and the old original ones are made of plastic on the sides. And funny enough, that was literally the only one that's still original. The other 3 have been replaced at some point in their life. There are 2 wee bolts holding it either side. Again, there's 1 and 2. That's your 2 bolts. You open them too, this will just pull up. That's another common point for the car to leak oil. If the oil gets into the connector, the next thing you're going to have an awful lot of problems with it running smoothly, because the engine just won't know where the eccentric shaft is. There's my 2 bolts. And so now, once I have my 2 bolts undone, it might be just a smidgen stubborn, but it will lift up like this. And now this back piece will lift up as well, and that's your oil seal. See, mine's all gone wet. So because it's all gone wet now, mine was very close to actually starting leaking into the sensor. As you can see, it's all oily around it, but there's none in the actual connector, so I actually got away handy enough with this. If it does start leaking in there, it's going to short something out, and the next thing you will lose nearly all the power in your engine. Might be handier if we use this phone for recording in the engine bay and just leave this one where it is. So as you can see, there's 1 here holding the 2 ground wires in. These go to your individual coil packs, so they all come back here. One bolt is here and 1 bolt is here, so I presume it's doing 1 and 2 on this side, and then 3 and 4 on this side. Obviously I do have to name all the cylinders the wrong way around. Don't lose these bolts in the holes for spark plugs anyway, you'll never get them back out. There's your second bolt. Now I can finish undoing all the bolts around the valve cover and see if it goes up here, handy enough or not. Now to do this last rascal of a bolt stuck in there, so I reckon I will need to just use a spanner the whole way out. Just out there. She's just a little bit too tight to get with my fingers, so we'll be using a spanner. Again, one of these offset 10mm ring spanners. An absolutely beautiful tool, so it is. Gets you out of a hole every single time. Now, so that is all my bolts undone on the valve cover. So if I just gently start prying it up from one corner and then go on to the next corner and just keep working my way around until the whole thing pops off the cylinder head. I actually missed a bolt. There's a fifth one there just beside the valvetronic motor. See that one in there? So there's one in there, 2, 3, 4 and 5 around the valvetronic motor altogether. To remember how it says disconnect that pipe, I just made that very mistake, so don't be like me. Now, the valve cover is off. It will come off if you're somewhat careful with it at the very least. It will come off, and yeah, the wiring loom cannot be removed fully out to the side. Even if you do undo the two Vana sensors, the loom will still stay in there because there's another wire coming off of it here. So it just won't let you just get rid of it altogether. So it has to stay there. And the one coming across as well, it's your main cabling. So it won't lift up too much for you. So it is going to be a bit awkward, but it's not too bad. Once you're careful enough, it's alright. So now, see, this is the valvetronic motor. This little shank turns and it turns this eccentric shaft. What happens then is there's little lifters there. It either pushes the valve down further or less, so it kind of works the amount or how far the single cam or the intake cam pushes the actual valve via a little rocker arm, and that's the problem. So the motor itself is fine, but the plug on the back has gone bad, so I need to replace the whole thing now. This is my new motor. It's Ridex. I do like Ridex stuff because it's very reasonably priced and they're actually good high quality gear as well. So it actually makes working on cars affordable as a hobbyist like myself. You actually still get a good quality product. Never had a Ridex item go bad on me since I started using them, so look into that. A good brand. So that's my new motor. So that'll be just sitting in there directly where this one is. The existing one is, should I say. Just leave that sitting there. Again, I will be using the 10mm offset ring spanner to try and open those. Like so, there's one. There's two. These are all torqued to very little torque. Or everything around the engine cover or the valve cover, everything is torqued to 11 Newton meters. So if you have a torque wrench, set that to 11 Newton meters. If you don't, just give it a wee squeeze. Don't overdo it. Don't sew them down, because it's all aluminium here, so if you do sew them down, you're going to damage the threads in that, and the next thing is you're going to have leaks all over the place. Also, the previous owner, he was a huge fan of RTV silicone. It's all over the shop, so I'll have to try and clean all that up as well, every bit of it. And it is everywhere. It's right around the head, the engine head. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of work in this shop. Old, new, so much better. Also, when changing the valvetronic motor, you will need to get yourself INPA or go into a garage and get them to reset the adaptions for it, so it has to relearn the eccentric shaft's limit. So I'll show you how to do it on computer if you do have INPA. Show you how to do it. But if you don't have it, you will need a mechanic that does have INPA, or a diagnostic tool of some sort that can read BMWs, particularly the MEV 9.2 software. I'm just going to grab a wee pick to try and pick out all the old RTB silicone out of it. Get yourself a set of these little picks. They are a lifesaver for cleaning tight little bits like that. Now we're ready to stick the new motor in now. So nice and clean. I might just stick a dab of RTV black silicone around it just to help it seal a bit better. I'm using this Wins black gasket maker. Pretty easy to use, that stuff. Just be aware that Wins stuff, if it sits too long on the shelf, it will stick very quick. Last time I used this bottle, it was last Monday, when I was trying to reinforce the gaskets on the charge pipe on my Merc. Since I've put in a stage 2 turbo and got it remapped, I noticed there's an awful lot of weak points in the pressurized part of the air intake. There's a lot of little small leaks around the place. So I'm just trying to double up on the rings and a bit of RTV silicone to try and reinforce them a little bit, just to be able to hold the boost, because I went for a stage 2 remap with the stage 2 turbo, and I just noticed the car cannot develop all the power it's meant to develop with that new turbo, because it's just leaking too much. I've overdone it a little bit on the RTV silicone here, so I'll just have to wipe some off. Now that's just enough there now to just help it. I don't want the RTV to actually seal it. I want it to just help the original gasket that's there. putting it all back together is literally a reversal of how you took it all apart. But I will still document it just to show you the torque settings and the whole lot, everything that needs to be done with it. Meanwhile, I'm just gonna clean up my hands a bit using this gunk engine foam degreaser, or foam engine degreaser. It works a charm. Probably not supposed to just rub it on my hands like that, but it works really well and smells lovely as well, so I see nothing wrong with it. Look at it, brand new. Now, the next thing is what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all the RTV silicone, all the old stuff off. Just if yours is the same and you have to do that, just be very careful not to leave any of the old stuff inside the valve covers, because valvetronic is a very complicated system and it will get clogged up very easy. That includes the Vanus solenoids as well. They will clog up and they'll stop working, and the next thing your car will be going into limp mode as well, so be very careful cleaning that up. This is what it looks like now once it's cleaned up a bit. I will do an engine flush when I'm changing oil on this, because to try and flush out all this gunk out of it. It's not too bad, but there's still some in it, so I'll try and flush it all out as much as I can. That's your eccentric shaft position sensor that you will need to relearn on the new motor, so it knows how to behave with the new motor on it. So now, to replace the gaskets, I'm just gonna take the old one out. See, after all these years, it's gone quite solid. It has lost its sealing capabilities now at this stage. I think that thing hasn't been changed in probably 6 or 7 years. Still somewhat rubbery, but it's just not quite there. See how old and brittle it is anymore. You see, it's just after cracking. So that's no good. I'll be replacing that. Then there is one in the middle here as well that goes around the valvetronic actuator motor, actuator slash motor. This will need to be replaced as well, and this has actually stayed in much better nick than the one around the outside. Has experienced less wear and tear over the years. Again, we do have a whole pile of RTV silicone in here as well, so I'm just going to replace all of that, or get rid of it first and then put in a dab of new one just to kind of stick the new gaskets in whilst I'm sticking in the valve cover back on. See all that stuff they mounted in here was uncanny. It's in the previous owner or whoever done the work, and that can't last. They use an entire tube just to try and seal up the gasket, which is just a smidgen too much, I reckon. So you want to try and remove every bit of that stuff out of it, so that the new gasket can actually make a good decent seal on it. Just be careful not to leave any residue behind. So with the pick I'm just kind of feeling around, see that there's no stuff. Once you're going around every ridge in it, you will notice where there is, it's going to go a little smoother than it would against just the plastic. See, you put in so much in it, it's actually started protruding into the valve cover, inside the valve cover itself. And I can see why now. Last time when he removed the valve cover, there's a little piece of plastic missing out of it, so by right I'd want to replace that valve cover as well. But I had ordered one here, I have one sitting, but I think it's off an E90 2-litre engine, because it seems to have the PCV system built into the actual valve cover in here, so I don't think it'll actually fit with the valvetronic motor on it. So I'll have to just stick on a dab of extra RTV on here. Normally when I fit this gasket, what I like to do is I like to stick a dab of RTV silicone just around the edges, just a small little bit, where it just to allow the gasket to kind of stick inside while I'm sticking on the valve cover back on, because it is going to be awkward. The gasket needs to stay inside the valve cover while I'm putting it on, and the valve cover will be facing the right way up, so gravity is not going to help me at all. So that's what I'm going to do there now. Grab that same Wins black gasket maker, and I'm just going to throw in a wee dab of it around the corners. That'll help the gasket to stay in there. Now let that sit for a minute. The little O-rings for my spark plug holes, I want to replace them as well. I'm going in that deep because they are another one quite common culprit for it to start leaking. So what you want to do now is you want to try and line up your gasket with the bolts. into the grooves. And as you're doing that, you kind of walk your way around it. The bolts will help it stay in a bit, but the RTV will do the most job on it to try and help it. So now that's one new gasket fitted. Stick that bolt back in. See them bolts, they have a little groove on the end. They go through the gasket, and that's what holds the gasket in place for it. Now again, RTV silicone just around this edge here. Just that will help it stay in very much so. And then just where that little piece of plastic is cracked out on my particular engine, that's where I want to stick in a dab of RTV as well on it. And when I say dab, I actually want to fill the groove in this at this particular point, so when I put in my gasket is going to actually compress the RTV inside the groove, and it'll help it seal better. So now on each corner I just want to throw in a little dab of RTV on it to try and hold it in. Same for these corners here. It is very satisfying using that stuff, so you have to try and remind yourself not to overdo it. So just throw a dab in around the place, everywhere. Now once you work out your gasket nice and straight, you'll see the two little outward bits, they need to sit on the front of the valve cover. That's where it needs to sit, that's the way it needs to go in. So see now, as I'm setting it in, the RTV kind of sticks it in there, and that's what we want to achieve, is we want to get some sort of bonding on it so it actually stays in the valve cover whilst I'm putting it back on the engine. So just work it nice and neat all the way around, like so. And then once I have it in fully, I'm just going to let it sit, let it rest for maybe 10-15 minutes, just to allow the RTV to skin over to actually stick the gasket in place. See, I'd actually put on way too much of it here, so I'm just going to wipe the excess off into one of my oil rags. Now next thing, I want to actually throw all the bolts back in through the gasket, because they'll allow the gasket to sit exactly where it needs to be, so then when I'm popping it back on, I don't have as much hassle with it. This will be an awkward enough job putting it back on. Try and get by all the wire and looms, as well as what's inside, so that the whole valvetronic system and everything in between. So prep is the key to making your own life a bit easier. Just throwing all the bolts back in. There is one in this corner that that I've lost in the engine bay. I'll have to find that once again. So now let that rest for a wee bit, about 15 minutes or so, to let the RTV skin over. Now we're back after a quick coffee break. There's all my bolts. It's all fairly set now, so the next thing is try and do the awkward job on it now, try and get it back in. Now to replace the O-rings, they only give you the 4 for these 2 tunnels to go down to the spark plugs. There's one at the very front and one at the very end. That's the 4 O-rings I'm going to be replacing. Make sure the space is all clean enough for the O-rings. See, they're all soaked in oil then. So what I want to do first is I want to try and get some of that oil off it. Just so I'm not ruining my hands while I'm working on it. Also, I do have a stray cat in the shed, so you can see there's cat hairs everywhere, which gets really annoying, but I'm not going to throw out the poor kitten out. There's my 2 spark plug stacks. Now I'll get me the O-rings, open the packet up. Next thing is I want to grab my pick and just kind of slide it in behind the O-ring and just work my way around it to try and take it off. See, that just popped off there. There's 1, there's 2. They do give you 4 of them. You notice how two of them are smaller and 2 of them are bigger. You do want to replace them the right way, otherwise you're going to have leaks. As far as I remember, they won't actually fit the wrong way around anyway. They won't sit right, so it's pretty self-explanatory, but at the same time, just be wary of it. There's my 4 new O-rings. Get them. I'm going to grab a wee bit of oil to lube them up as I'm slipping them on, just so I don't tear them up. Just have a whole stack of them Guinness single-use cups, disposable cups. Don't know where I got them years ago. I'm just gonna put in a bit of oil in there, fresh new oil in the cup, and I'm just gonna lube up my O-rings. So what I just want to do is just dip my finger in the oil and just lube it up like this, like so. Just give her plenty. And now the next thing, I want to just walk it around. There we go, that's one on. Give her a little extra just for the sake of it. There's 1. Now the smaller one goes on the bottom of it. So same thing again, dip your finger in there, lube her up, start at 1 inch and just work your way around. This one's a bit tighter than the top one, but there you go, that's it there. So now give her another wee plenty again, just for the sake of doing it. Same again, new O-ring, dip finger, and this, in my case, dip the 2 of them. That's what she said. Give it a wee bit of oil again, give her plenty just to loop it up as you're putting them in, because you don't want to rip these apart. You'd be in for a bad time. You can flood your spark plug and that is up to no good. If you flood them, they won't work right. So again, just work it around, dip your finger in again, another wee smidgen of oil. Now that's that done. Obviously wipe my finger, ruined with motor oil. Doesn't matter what motor oil it is for lubing it up, obviously just make sure it's fresh and clean. You don't want any muck, any dust in your engine, for obvious reasons, considering it's one of those complicated ones with valvetronic and vanes and everything in between, all the electrics and the whole lot. Something is going to get clogged up. So now just come over, just slip that in the new end like so. She's going to be a bit tight to get in. That's why I have a bit of oil in it to help it lube, help it slip in a bit easier. She's nice and snug in there. So now the next thing, I'm going to dip my finger in again and just give this outside edge a little bit of oil, because once I slip that on, there's all likelihood there's a possibility of this ripping the O-ring as well. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just sticking a wee bit of oil in there, in and around the ring. Now this is my valve cover back on. Just gonna grab a wee mirror to have a look in at the back of it, make sure that the gasket is sitting in right in there. One of these bad boys. What I want now is to grab my phone, bring on the torch, shine it in there, just check and make sure it's all good. Do have a little bit that's not sitting right, so I'm just going to lift the cover back off, just try and get it to set in quite exactly right as I need. Now massage that into place there. Now double check, make sure it's right. So that looks pretty good there now. So the next thing is I'm going to start tightening the bolts in a crisscross pattern. So by crisscross pattern, what I mean is I'll start with this bolt. then walk my way around across the way into that bolt here, then come up to this bolt here, then go on to the one slightly out towards the front here, then onto the back one, then this one, then that one, then these two, then over to the front again to this one, and then do the back one here. And that's going to give me the full crisscross pattern, and every one bolt will be nice and tight. Again, these are all torqued down to 11 Newton meters of torque. Just keep that in mind, or just a bit more than just hand tight. Don't sew them, you'll damage the block. So now, to set the torque wrench, you loosen off this wee bolt at the end and set it to 11. Since this doesn't actually have 10 on the handle, you just set the 0 at 20 and then dial it back to 1. So that's 1 there. That's 11 Newton meters of torque. Tighten the little grub screw on again, and there you go, that's 11 Newton meters. So now we're going to go tightening them in crisscross pattern around the outside, and just for the sake of it I might just do a crisscross in the middle as well. As it turns out, the previous owner has overdone this one bolt here, and the threads are gone bad, so I will have to try and fix that somehow, because it's going to leak if that's not proper tight. So now, an hour later, I had to take this whole valve cover back off, drill that hole out a little bit bigger, get me a threaded insert, press that in there into the head, into the cylinder head, and then put it all back together and torque everything back down again properly. So that's it now, fixed again. So once you get your laptop, you want to open NPA. See, battery on, ignition on. So now you press shift and F8 and it gives you a full menu there of all the older chassis. You want to go down to, in my particular case, E46 engine, and it's ME 9.2 or MEV 9 for N46. Been greeted with this menu. You want to go to F6 and stern. Now you want to go to F7 VVT and learning, and you want to press F1. That'll move the motor. So when you press F1, you can hear it. So now that's it after relearning its values. Don't mind this, it doesn't move when it's going because my program is not refreshing as quick as it should. So it just doesn't see it, but it is moving, as you can hear. So that's it, relearned. Very important. That's how you change a valvetronic motor on an BMW n46b20a. Quite a simple job really. Another job I need to do is to replace the oil sump gasket. I actually have it here as well. I do have a bit of a leak underneath the car as well. It has sat a while outside in the very cold through the winter, so I had to replace the whole coolant system on it. That's brand new now, every bit of it. But just the last bit now that's left is the oil sump. Otherwise they're a brilliant little motor. I have this car 3 years now, ran it relatively trouble free. That's it. Thanks for watching.